Good morning, everybody. My name is Eric, and it's journaling time once again. I hope everybody has their coffee and they're feeling good today because it's time to start writing. For today's prompt, I'm going to set you guys up with a little anecdote first. And we're going to be working on a behavioral flaw of ourselves, or something that we want to make ourselves better at. But we're going to implore a different perspective or a different technique I discovered years ago just by accident. Well, actually, I had been doing it, but I applied it to myself, and it had a world of help while I was going through college. So let me just go back a little bit. When I was in college, I was studying physics. And when I went to the upper divisions, the last 2 years or 2.5 years, whatever it may be, of my college career, where you're really diving into your major focus. For me, it was physics. And it was difficult and tricky. What made it even more tricky was my infrastructure. My executive function skills were very, very lacking. Henceforth, why this journaling video appeared on the math channel, and why Phi Mathematics is built, executive functions are built into the construction of the lessons and exercises. And I'll go into that a little more. If you want more information, you can go on the channel. But journaling was a big aspect of that. But let me backtrack. So I was in college and I was studying, and I was having a hard time understanding some material. The math was difficult. A lot of the physics was non-intuitive, and it just wasn't clicking sometimes. Sometimes it made sense, sometimes it didn't. A lot of times I just kind of felt lost. And over the years, that's given me tremendous amounts of empathy and sympathy for my students, because I get it, and I get it from the mathematical point of view, even though I loved math and things like that. So one of the things that happened to me sometime towards the end, maybe my junior or senior year in college, as I was working out problems, one of the things I would do was I would get a solution either from a professor or working with other colleagues, and I would throw it up on a whiteboard. And then I would have to transfer that from a whiteboard to a written work so I could turn it in for whatever I was doing. So what I would do is, I remember sitting in my old room years ago, and I was looking at the board and I was copying it down. One of the side byproducts, which actually is built into here too, was I started writing slower. That's a little side thing, and that helped me do it. But as I was writing slower and looking at the board, in the back of my head, just because I had been already a teacher, I had already been teaching music since I left high school, and then I had taught some music after high school in drum corps, that my brain kind of started, my perception changed. And as I was copying down the problem to be able to turn it in, I was from a point of view as a teacher. So while I was writing it, even if it was for myself, I was in my head hearing a narrative, as if I was talking to someone and explaining what I was doing. I was explaining the problem. First, I would explain what the problem was asking. And this is in my head. So we had to go calculate this, or we had to go find this, whatever it was. Then I would say, well, we have to use this physics equation or this physics theory, whatever it was. And then we would have to use this mathematical. And I would kind of walk step by step why we did what we did, as if I was giving a lesson to students, but in reality, this was all going on in my head. But what this did, though, this shift in perception, moved me to, it removed me from inside myself or inside the immediate problem, and I was stepping outside, looking back at myself. Or you could even think about it as kind of like going up and looking down a little bit, like a higher altitude. And it gave me that new perception and perspective to see the interlockings of the actual problem. And it gave me an understanding. And I realized the more I did this, that halfway through or 3/4 of the way through, I wouldn't even need to look at the board anymore, and I could just finish the problem on my own. And you can see the remnants of this in the Phi Mathematics channel. You will see Catholic calculations, and you will see Phi Mathematics exercises. The Catholic calculations are more or less straight lecture where I talk kind of like this and you get some information, but the exercises is where you just copy. So I realized that by stepping outside of it, that it gave me an understanding of it, because I was able to see the working pieces together. And that's kind of how I built this channel. And now that I'm in the process of writing a book for executive functions on these very techniques and routines and systems and how to set up your life and organize it for student success, that this is why it's popping up in journaling. And journaling is one of the main nerve centers, or where we can step back and say, okay, we've set everything up. Doesn't mean it's done. It's not fixed. Things are always dynamic. They're changing. So we need to be able to make adjustments. As I've heard from the great Floyd Mayweather Jr. in boxing, always make adjustments. You have to make adjustments in the ring. Life is no different. So today's prompt is, how can we fix or correct a bad habit of ourselves? So what we're going to do is we're going to utilize that prompt, but we're going to step outside and we're going to look at ourselves from an outside point of view so we can be a little bit more objective, so we can hopefully distill a solution. And the way we're going to do it is very simple. When you're writing today, I want you to refer to yourself by name. You are not writing as yourself. You're writing as someone outside. So for example, you could do something like this. Eric has a bad habit of doing this, this, and this. He does this, he does this. You get the idea. You're referring yourself as a third person, as not yourself, not an I. You're saying he likes to do this, Eric likes to do this, or whatever your name may be. And keep it in that perspective. And what I want you to try and do is, in the journaling, we're going to do one page as usual. The first third or so, I want you just to describe the problem in as much detail as you can. Eric likes to do this. He drinks too much coffee sometimes, and then he ends up doing this, or whatever it may be that you do. But be detailed and descriptive. Around the middle of it, I want you to, the middle of the page, excuse me, I want you to start coming up with ways that you would prescribe to Eric of how to correct that behavior. I'm talking about myself, but you would go about yourself. Whatever that behavioral or correction or habit you want to fix or change. And doesn't mean that's going to be the only solution, but the idea is to first describe it to kind of get the things working in your mind, and then as you go from the middle to the end of the writing session, come up with some ways of how you could fix it. And this is how we start correcting ourselves, by making adjustments. I hope that kind of makes sense. And if you do this over a few more times, little by little, you'll start coming up with solutions of how to correct yourself. And the best way to do it, as I've found, at least this is one technique, is to kind of step outside yourself. It gives you a little bit more of an objective point of view. Just as I did, by stepping outside of the problem, I was able to see the interlockings of the problem, how all the pieces fit together. And it's like, oh, that makes sense. Why I use this math, because it was this physics, and I was able to get it. So while I was writing down the problem, I didn't even have to look at the board anymore, because I knew how to finish it, because I understood it. That's kind of what we're going for today. So for today's prompt is, how can you correct one bad habit of yourself? Okay? And before we start, as usual, please like, share, and comment. I would love to see some comments. If you guys have prompts you want to do, or you have questions, or just thoughts and feelings about journaling, I would love to hear from you guys. So please do. And I want to remind you guys that if you guys need a new journal book, if you like any of the different styles we have in the opening intro of this video, please just follow the link and you can purchase them on Amazon. Greatly appreciate it. Anyways, without any further ado, let's get going. Oops. Okay. So today, let's get our light together here. Today is the 3rd of August. Time is 7:20 in the morning for me. The location, I am home. And my mood, we'll call it great. Why not? And as a usual reminder, write an opening sentence. I recommend how the day is outside, just to kind of orient the day. And what might be helpful, and this is, usually you may get this in an English class, formulate the prompt, you know, in some sentence or fashion. It kind of prompts everything, lack of a better word. So remember, how can you correct one bad habit of yourself, but you're going to write it from an outside point of view, looking at yourself. So refer to yourself by name, as if you are like a teacher or an outside person looking in, but you know all the details because you know yourself and how you might come about fixing this bad habit or this tendency or whatever it is you want to correct. All right, enjoy the process, everybody. actually really good. So, hopefully everything went well with your writing. Just as a little closure here, hi Wiley. Everybody say hi to Wiley. If you haven't seen Wiley. As a little closure here, while I was writing, doing the very techniques that I mentioned in the beginning of this video, and I'm writing, talking as if I'm looking at myself from the outside, some basic solutions came out. And because I was removed, I didn't get the normal kind of anxiety or defense mechanisms I would if I was saying, oh, I need to do this, oh, I'm not very good at this, oh, this, whatever it may be, or whatever other myriad of ideas or psychological visions or whatever, everybody's a little different, comes to mind. These are the blocks that get in our way. We have to find ways outside of it. Now, I know this may seem a little odd, just we haven't really done anything. We're in the same physical space, we're just writing, and how could the perception really change these things? But remember, most things in life that we do in terms of behavior, they're not tangible. If we want to change things, a lot of it is just changing perception. Remember, perception orients belief, belief dictates action, action carves the world. So we can change our perception to get some more information, or change our perception of how we're looking at the world or a behavior, then we can change it. And this is why it's important first to just kind of go through the details, describe it in detail, and try and be as objective as we can. And then usually in that process, just like when I was writing, copying down the blackboard, I didn't have to look at the blackboard anymore, or the whiteboard in this case. I understood, and I could start to finish the problems on my own. And the more I did it, the less I could just do it from the beginning. I didn't have to rely on people. And that was the beginning of growth, and that's the beginning of learning. And as I will close today, journaling is a self-discovery of your personal evolution. You have to, of course, the underlining caveat is you have to be honest as you humanly can. But remember, these books are for your purposes only. Whatever you write in there, write as open and freely as you want, even if it's crazy or whatever it may be. You don't have to share it with anybody. You can if you like, but you don't have to share it with anybody. And I was talking to a friend the other day about journaling, and she was telling me a lot of times she just journals to empty her head, and then she'll take the papers, tear them up, and put them in a box or burn them. Because the idea is just to get them out of your head. And the process of writing, as opposed to typing, writing, in my personal experience, is much more potent than typing. It's much more effective. And I remember once again reading or seeing a video that the process of watching your pen write on the page and thinking somehow connects the physical, the hand movement to the eye, and that has a different experience than just typing where you're looking at a screen, not looking at your fingers. It is different. And if anybody has tried to write a paper just typing it from scratch, you may know this. I'm not going to go on too much detail. That's for a different video, and I have different comments on that. Anyways, I hope everybody enjoyed the process. I hope you guys got some insight at how to start changing your behaviors for the better, and have a nice day. Remember, always enjoy the process. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.